Right, hello everyone. Yes, tonight what I wanted to talk about Stephen Parent, because I've never talked about him in detail, and there's a video that Tom O'Neill did called Mysteries to be Addressed in Chaos 2, because Tom O'Neill of course wrote the book Chaos, and he's done this video where he talks about a number of things about Stephen Parent, and so I thought it would be good to watch that and we can discuss it. And I've put together like the bullet points basically of all the things he talks about, so we can discuss it all later. So yeah, we'll just basically watch the video, and the video doesn't have voiceover, though it does contain interviews with a priest when we get to it, but there's bits that I can read out that just are played in text and that. But yeah, it's really interesting because there's a lot not known about Stephen Parent. You know, he's obviously the first person they're supposed to have killed. He's supposed to have been coming down the drive, and they're supposed to have killed him in the drive, then pushed his car back to where he was, and he's supposed to have just been completely unknown to them, and was only up there because he was selling a clock radio to William Garretson, the guy that was living in the guest house, the houseboy that lived in the guest house. And I always just thought that seemed like a weird time to be selling someone a clock radio. You know, I always thought there was something off about that story. But there's a lot more to Stephen Parent, obviously, and we'll get to talking about that in a bit. I'll just say hello to everyone because it's a live stream. Hi, everyone. Anyway, yes, Beckham's here as well. And Mark and James and Lisa and Bean Dip Cartography and Little Milky again. Everyone's here. What's that? Sekhmet Secret Weapon. That's a good name as well. Yeah, but like I say, there's a video but I've been sharing it in all the groups, in the Facebook group and on the subreddit, and that, so you've probably already seen the video. But yeah, people have been leaving comments about Stephen Parent, and I just wanted to address the Stephen Parent situation a bit more. And yeah, it was strange today. While I was searching for stuff about Stephen Parent, I saw the picture of Stephen Parent's body on the slab, and I'd never seen how many knife wounds he had on his arms. He actually had a lot of knife wounds on his arms. They call that defensive wounds on his hands and his arms. So it's more than just once he was slashed at, and that it's quite strange. Oh yeah, and I have to warn you, when we watch this video, there is a bit where for a few seconds a picture of Stephen Parent's body in the car flashes up. I'll warn you when it's going to happen, so I don't normally show the bodies, and it's literally only on the screen for a few seconds, so you just look away when you see his car, just don't look at the car. But yeah, and it's just, well, like I say, a lot they didn't tell you about Stephen Parent. So yeah, we'll start watching the video presently. We might as well just get on with it, I think. If we're going like that. At trial and in Helter Skelter, Vince Bugliosi asked us to believe that Stephen Parent went to Cielo Drive in the middle of the night to try and sell a clock radio to the caretaker of the estate, Bill Garretson. Parent, 18, recently graduated high school and was living with his parents in the Los Angeles suburb of El Monte, more than 45 minutes away. Parent arrived at the guest cottage shortly before midnight on August the 8th. He demonstrated the clock radio to Garretson, who wasn't interested, and then made a phone call and left less than half an hour after he'd arrived. He was the first victim of followers of Charles Manson, who killed him in his car before entering the main house and slaughtering Sharon Tate and 3 of her friends. Among the many mysteries of the unusual visit was why, after the bodies were discovered the next morning, it took police more than 12 hours to identify Parent's body, and why, when it was finally identified, it was by the Parent family's priest, the troubled boy's self-described mentor, Fr Byrne. In the early years of my reporting, I was able to confirm that Stephen was gay, though his family and friends were likely unaware of it. I also learned, after obtaining exclusive access to LAPD investigative files in 2006, that the man Parent called from Garrettson's phone just before getting killed, John, was his boyfriend. Sorry, I got his name. Fr Byrne would maintain that Parent was going to Friedman's house in West Hollywood to install a stereo at that late hour. Friedman confirmed to me that Stephen was really coming to spend the night, as he did several times a week since they'd been dating earlier in the summer. What was most intriguing were the reports in the same file disclosing that Parent would also stay with a much older man a few nights a week, a former priest who'd been defrocked after several arrests for the sexual abuse of minors. The man, 52-year-old Edgar Khan, had been introduced to Parent by Fr Byrne, who had served in the priesthood with Khan a decade earlier. I interviewed Father Byrne at the Nazareth House Retirement Home for Priests in December 2007.
Steve was a...
And I'll just pause it for a second there. But yeah, so there was a lot to take in there, but that's crazy, yeah. And yeah, it's important. Yeah, a clock radio was more valuable in them days. That was like a more advanced piece of tech in those days. Yeah. Sorry, I had to read that so fast. It flashes by so fast. The video is going to be in the description and that if you just want to watch the video and read it yourself later. Yeah. But it is a strange reason, isn't it? Yeah, for him to have actually been up there. Yeah. Yeah. Which is called the pool boy mafia. They're actually referred to as houseboys in all the police reports and the newspaper reports. But yeah, we'll get to that. Anyway. He was an audio technician, basically. He knew all about audio. He installed stereos. That comes into it later as well. Because Vincent Bugliosi says he made that phone call to the bloke to go over and install a stereo system in his house. Again, at midnight, which is a bit weird. But obviously, Tom O'Neill found when he interviewed the guy that that wasn't the reason he was going there. He was going to stay the night because the two men were dating. So, yeah, it's odd. Yeah, that's it. Well, allegedly, we don't know for sure. Well, Kenneth, because Bobby B lived with Kenneth Anger, we do know that he was, like that with Kenneth Anger, but we don't know for sure Tex was. But it sure looks like it. Yeah. Yeah, and the clock is supposed to have stopped at 12:30, and someone manually moved it back. And someone had moved it back. Yeah, that's strange. But I know I heard that it got reset because they plugged it in to use the radio. I heard that the whole thing just reset entirely because they used it in the police station to listen to the radio. But yeah, we'll get on with this interview now anyway. Because yeah, it gets quite sus. So this is the priest that identified Stephen Parent's body and was supposedly his mentor. And you find out he was an altar boy at his church. He was the parish priest sort of thing.
I'd say a regular student. He was a person that liked to do things at the school. One time he got into a lot of trouble because he rearranged the full classroom.
Oh, how old was he then?
No, a year before he died. But then he was about, at that time, 15 or 16.
Okay. And you got to know him from teaching him or being the parish priest?
He was an altar boy.
An altar boy. And now, you had known the family for a while or a short period?
I knew them as parishioners.
Mm-hmm. Were you the pastor, the head?
I was the pastor at that time.
The parent had been getting into far more serious trouble than just rearranging. He'd been arrested 5 times for burglary, and he'd also spent 2 years in a facility for juvenile offenders, which made it seem all the more odd that his mentor, Father Byrne, would introduce him to a convicted pederast, 34 years his senior, Edgar Khan, in Hollywood. Police first learned about Khan from Jonas Miller, who'd hired Parent at Khan's recommendation to his store, this place. Jonas Miller. So Stephen Parent was brought into his shop by a long-time friend named Edgar Khan. According to Miller, Khan studied with Father Byrne, minister for Stephen Parent and his family, and he believes Parent stayed with Khan at his residence off Knock. Miller states Khan did not continue his studies in the ministry, but it is rumoured that Khan does not enjoy normal sexual relations with women, but prefers boys instead. Parent had been fired from his previous job at a recording studio for stealing, according to an interview with the owner of that studio. He believed he was a kleptomaniac. Came up there. Though he wasn't aware of it at the time, Stephen's kleptomania carried on. A few days after Parent's death, Miller received a phone call from Edgar Khan informing him he had electronic equipment that Stephen had stolen from the store. Miller believes Parent would relate all his activities to Khan, and it was Khan who called 3 days after the murder to inform him that he had the following electronic equipment that Parent had stolen from Miller's store. While Parent had only worked at the Miller stereo store a few weeks, his fellow employees at the store were already perplexed by his relationship with Khan. If they told police, would often call Parent at the store, agitating him just before he left. Fred Deller, Parent's immediate supervisor at the store, told police Parent received one such call a week before he died. On Friday, Parent received a telephone call about 8 p.m. from a male voice. Parent said, "I can't talk now, everything's okay." Then he hung up and told Deller that was my roommate. He gets very funny if I don't get home in time for dinner. A similar call came a week later, the night Parent was killed. Deller overheard that call too, telling police he assumed it was Khan and Parent lied to get off the phone. Parent received a phone call at the store on Friday night, about 6:30 p.m. Male voice. Parent stated laughingly, "We're having a business meeting, can't talk now." Deller also told detectives about a final mysterious call Parent made just before leaving for the night. Later, about 8 p.m, Stephen Parent made a phone call from the store to an unknown person. Quite concerned that no one from the shop was listening to the conversation. The report stated that the detectives expected to obtain the store's phone records to determine who Parent called a few hours before he was killed. Officers at this time are awaiting the telephone number that Parent called on the bookkeeper, Mrs. Silver. I haven't been able to locate any more information about the call or the identity of the recipient, and Bugliosi kept its existence out of his official narrative of the evening. It seems significant, however, that when detectives interviewed Jonas Miller a second time, he was far less forthcoming than he'd been on other occasions. A re-interview of Mr. Miller was conducted on 8/22/69. Mr. Miller was extremely evasive, and to any and all questioning, he stated he had very important business meeting and couldn't stay around for any further questioning. Detectives interviewed Khan at his apartment in West Hollywood on August 25th, 1969, 3 days after their final interview with Miller. Khan began by confirming that what detectives already knew about his relationship with Parent. Khan stated that he had known Parent the past 3-4 years, that he had met him through Fr Byrne of the Nativity Catholic Church in El Monte. Khan has known Fr Byrne for many years and was aware that Byrne was or had gone to bat for Parent, who was experiencing difficulties with the police. Sometime near the middle of July, Parent assisted Khan in selecting some hi-fi stereo equipment from James Miller. Through this transaction, Miller became aware of Parent's electronic usage, and this led to Miller's hiring of Parent as a part-time salesman, partially through Khan's recommendation. Subsequent to this, Parent began to visit Khan on Sunday evenings at Khan's home, after Parent finished working at night. At this point, Khan seemed to colour his statement with a self-protective gloss. Khan stated that the parents made 3 or 4 such Sunday visits, and on each occasion, Parent and Khan discussed stereo equipment. On one such visit, Parent was accompanied by a female Caucasian that Khan remembered as Eva. And here Khan confirmed that the first call Deller overheard Parent receive at the stereo store that night he was killed when Parent died, so he couldn't talk because he was in a business meeting, was him, Khan. Khan also took the opportunity to deflect any misgivings the detectives might have had about his friendship with such a young, vulnerable boy. On the weekend of August 10th, 1969, Khan had made plans to be visited by a female friend. late 869, approximately 1800, phone parent Jonas Miller and asked him not to visit him, Khan, on the following Sunday, 8/10/69. Khan stated that parent indicated that he was attending a sales meeting of Miller's. This was the last contact Khan had with parent. The interview ended with the detectives acknowledging the elephant in the room. Khan stated that he was not aware of any of parent's friends or recreational activities. Khan was extremely nervous during the interview, a condition he attributed to his fear of police due to 2 prior 288 PC arrests, which was lewd and vicious acts with minors. So why had Father Byrne sent this young charge to Edgar Khan? Of course, I had to ask him. Not the easiest conversation for a former altar boy to have with a priest. Right, I'll pause it for a minute there. And we're getting to the bit where you see the body for a few seconds. We'll just see what people have been saying in the chat, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, right, Ross, don't worry. We're just getting to the good bits now. Yeah. Who left the horn-rimmed glasses? That's supposed to have been Charles Manson when he went back, isn't it? He claimed that, apparently. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Dark music in the video and sound of just record static as well in one thing. Yeah. And the interview starts to get weird. A phone starts ringing in the background of the thing, and when he says, "Are you going to answer that?" he says, "No, I'm avoiding phone calls for a certain reason or something." It's weird. We'll get back into it. Right, so no one had any comments. Really? Right, yeah, so I'll get on with it. I just have to keep pausing it to avoid problems. Right. But this is, yeah, like I say, we'll get to a bit where you see the body for a couple of seconds. Just look away when you see his car if you don't want to see it.
Now, some of this was reported at the time, and I don't want to dredge stuff up, but apparently you had gone to bat for Steve, and he'd gotten in some trouble with taking electronic equipment or stuff. Was that your relationship? Were you trying to counsel him, or?
Yes, I tried to counsel him,
Mm-hmm.
and he would come over to the rectory
Mm-hmm.
on occasion, and he would be the server at the masses.
Mm-hmm. And there was a fellow named Edgar Kahn, Chahn. Do you remember him?
Yes.
Stephen was living with him for a while.
No, Stephen would visit him.
Uh-huh.
Edgar Kahn was a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
He became a friend of Stephen's.
Mm-hmm.
And he lived in Los Angeles. He's now deceased.
What was he like? Because he was quite older than Stephen, right?
Oh, he's older than I was.
Oh, he was?
Awesome.
How old were you in 1969?
Well, I was born in 1925, if that helps you.
25. So you were about 25, 35. Oh, early 40s maybe.
Yes.
Okay. Because I've read some of the police interviews, and Kahn had told them that Stephen was still taking electronic equipment at that point, and that's why they were looking first to see whether this had something to do with that. Did you know that? Did Mr. Kahn tell you that?
I don't remember that at all.
Oh, if you want to get that, I can turn this off.
No, I'm not going to get it.
Oh, okay.
I hear calls that I'm not answering them for particular reasons.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk to that rider. Quite the pause coming up, he says.
Do you remember why you introduced him to Mr. Khan? Was it so he would know someone in LA, or?
Yeah, the phone. It's so sassy, just goes, yeah, I'm ignoring the
You
phone.
know, I cannot remember how he
They're
met
ringing again.
Edgar.
Mm-hmm.
It must have been through me.
That's what Edgar told the police.
Edgar was a good friend.
Mm-hmm. And you knew him because
God,
he was studying to be a priest
Wait,
at
that's
one
about
point?
Edgar?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I met him through another priest.
Uh-huh. And he just didn't find his calling, or?
He didn't. That's correct. It
Mm-hmm.
was not his calling.
Uh-huh.
He's going to be in a retirement home as well here, and he's like old and in a retirement home.
That brings us to the sensitive part of this, and I'm not trying to dig up dirt or anything, but when I was reading the police reports, they said that Edgar had actually had some convictions or had been arrested a few times.
Edgar?
Yeah.
I know of.
Yeah, they said for lewd conduct with a child.
I never heard that.
Never heard that?
I don't think that's true.
Well, in the interview, he admitted it to the police when they asked him that he had 2 prior convictions.
Well, that's something
There's
I
the
didn't
phone
know
again.
anything about.
And Stephen, this was a different era then than it is now, so it was a lot more closed and not open-minded. But
You're in a
I
kinky
learned
priest
that Stephen was
hotline, yeah.
gay and was trying to keep that a secret from his family. Were you ever aware of that?
No, I don't remember any conversations about that
Uh-huh.
one way or the other.
And you never suspected that he might be, or?
Oh,
No,
there it is.
I never really did. I don't think that subject ever came up.
Huh.
Pause it for a second. Yeah, it just gets into newspaper articles now about just how weird it is, how long it took them to identify him. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, father, have you got my pants over there? That sort of thing. But yeah, that is weird. And yeah, the phone just keeps ringing throughout the interview. And he says something weird like, yeah, I'm ignoring the phone calls for some reason or something, doesn't he? Yeah. And yeah, well, and he can't remember why he introduced him to this Edgar Khan. So yes, it all seems very sensitive, doesn't it? And like I said, when it gets worse at the end. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird, but that's what this gets into now. It's really strange because Stephen Parent did have ID on him as well. We find out that was covered up. They made out that it was just because they didn't process his car registration, but we find out from the property reports that they did have ID from Stephen Parent. So why didn't they identify him quicker? It does seem quite odd. Yeah, and like I said, his parents found out in a really heartless way, as we'll find out. We'll get on with it. Wait a second. Yeah, that's it. Well, this is what we're about to hear. Listen to how his family found out he was dead. It's horrible. I'll get on with it. Oh. Besides the ultimate shock of learning that his boy had been killed in Benedict Canyon, there was still in Parent's mind a way in which he learned of the killing. For 12 hours, the boy's body had lain on a slab in the coroner's office while officials sought his identity, a mystery Parent now believes should have been solved routinely. What bothered Parent is that his boy's car had been found at the murder scene shortly after 8:30 a.m. Saturday. Yet it wasn't until more than 12 hours later that Steve's parish priest, told of the possibility of the boy's death by a reporter, went to the coroner's office to make a positive identification. Apparently, no police officer checked the car's license plate number against the registration records from the motor vehicle department. So, Sunday morning, Parent said he had yet to be contacted by a member of the Los Angeles Police Department. A reporter had gone to the Parent home Saturday evening. He'd found, however, the parents were not located until 3 hours later when they returned home from a restaurant. By this time, Reverend Robert Byrne was preparing to attempt to identify the boy's body himself, hoping to spare the family. His father Byrne was driving to the coroner's office downtown in El Monte. Police officers appeared at the Parent home. He handed the startled family a card before only the number of the county coroner's office. Parents, still unaware that his boy was dead, dialed the telephone number given him by the officer. By this time, parents said, my wife was hysterical and damn near in collapse. The voice of John Strickland, the coroner's deputy, came on the line. Your son has apparently been involved in the shooting, parent remembered him saying. So August the 11th, Los Angeles Times reports that Fr Byrne was alerted by a reporter that Stephen's body might be at the coroner's office. And Fr Byrne, with his own initiative, went to the coroner's office to see if it was true, without notifying the parent family. Yeah, it wasn't until more than 12 hours later that Stephen's parish priest, told of the possibility of the boy's death by a reporter, went to the coroner's office to make a positive identification. The day before, the same paper, the Los Angeles Times, reported that Byrne had been told by Wilfred Parent that Stephen was missing, and that's why he went to the coroner's office, not because he'd been told by a reporter. Parent was identified by his parish priest, the Reverend Robert Byrne, after the boy's father, Wilfred E. Parent, had told him his son was missing. Father Byrne began crying as Deputy Coroner John Strickland showed him Parent's body. Oh my God, putting his head in his hands. Steve, Steve, Steve. The boy's father called the coroner's office about the same time and was told his son was dead. This is the excuse the LAPD gave for the 12-hour delay in identifying Parent, who initially ran the same investigation from West Los Angeles Division. At the time we first found the Parent car at the scene, we were going 14 different directions at once. So many things had to be done, I guess we just didn't have time to follow up on the car registration. Stephen's parents, Wilfred and Juanita, his older sister, attending the trial. What's never been explained, however, is what wasn't reported by video seeing Helter Skelter was the fact that Parent's family could have immediately been notified because his bank book, wallet, and several forms of personal ID were taken from his car and Parent's pockets. As he often did, Bugliosi wrote the opposite in Helter Skelter, stating that Deputy Coroner John Finken listed the personal belongings of John Doe, a Lucerne wristwatch, wallet with various papers but no ID. So it's added. Bugliosi knew this wasn't true because he personally questioned Deputy Coroner Finken at both the Tate LaBianca and Charles Tate Watson trials. Well, at the Tate trial, Finken wasn't asked if there was identifying information in the wallet with papers. He said that he had removed from Parent's pocket at the subsequent Tex Watson trial a ring and identification in the form of wallet and cards and some small change. Alex added. And Bugliosi also had at his disposal the LAPD's homicide investigation property report for the murders at Cielo Drive, which listed what was recovered from the crime scenes, including miscellaneous ID of S.E. Parent and a checkbook, Stephen L. Parent. So many mysteries surrounding Stephen Parent and his doomed visit to the Tate property to sell a clock radio to a virtual stranger at midnight, and now new ones involving Catholic priests and occults. Father Byrne was abruptly transferred to another parish a little over a month after the murders. He passed away in 2011 at the age of 86. When I asked the Archdiocese of Los Angeles for the records concerning Father Byrne's transfer from the Nativity on September 16, 1969, I was told that the personal files of the priest remained sealed until 7 years after his death. When I asked again 7 years later, I was told the rules had changed and they was no longer being released without the authorization of the vicar of the church. Wow, yeah, so that's the video. Well, a lot to unpack there, isn't there? So I did do a thing of bullet points, but yeah, well, that's just crazy, isn't it? So he knew the parish priest sort of apparently passed him on to this other guy who was defrocked for doing something with minors. So yeah, quite shocking. And this was all covered up. And Steve Parent did have ID on him, and they covered that up as well. And all the stuff about him, I didn't know that he'd done 2 years in a juvenile detention centre. I knew he was on probation, but he had done more than just that. Yeah, that's it. And if they were all hanging around in the same circles, i.e. pool boys in the music scene, Parent would have recognised Tex. Maybe that's why he shot him. And that's why he said, I won't tell anyone. And stuff like that, because he'd recognised him. Or whatever. Because people would probably who are new to this thing might not know what we mean by the pool boy mafia. When we're talking about the pool boy mafia, this is the idea that there's, because in the Harrigan and Doyle situation, they had a houseboy who stole money off them, and William Garretson was like a houseboy for Rudy Altobelli. He looked after the guest house, and he looked after dogs in the guest house. And it's thought that Tex and Bobby Beausoleil might have been involved in this same racket. And so there's just a theory developing about these, that they all knew each other through that. But it's only a theory. There's no proof. We've got no evidence that Stephen Parent ever met any of them. But yeah, it's believed they could be connected. And but I've often thought, because of his connection to stealing audio equipment, that he might have been in on it when he thought it was just going to be a robbery, basically. But when it started turning to murder, maybe he tried to run. And that's when they finished him off. I don't know. Or he just witnessed something just as he was leaving, because I don't believe now that he really was killed as he was going down the drive. Maybe he ran from the guest house when he witnessed them doing stuff on the lawn, killing all those people on the lawn, or whatever. Who knows? Yeah, and Tex is supposed to have stayed in the guest house at Cielo Drive while Melcher was living there with Dean Morehouse, and he's a pervy character as well. I'll have to do a stream getting into who Dean Morehouse is as well. Yeah. Oh, well, there's an identical radio. Is it? Yeah, well, I've seen, yeah, you can get radios like it, can't you? It'd be a late 60s one, wouldn't it? Obviously, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, just having a look. Yeah, that's it. They would have had all sorts of electronics for shooting and editing film at the house. Yeah, the porn, basically. I mean, there's also a stereo system that was there that isn't mentioned in Helter Skelter or anything like that, or any of the police reports. But it might be one of these things that they don't release to the public, so they have new information. You know, they know if people were actually there because they would know about that sort of thing. But was Stephen Parent interested in stealing the audio equipment, and that's how he was involved? But then he tried to run off when they started killing people, and they had to kill him. Yeah, that's it. And they found, well, people say that there's actual pictures before the murders where you see that fence down. Anyway, so he didn't necessarily knock that fence down, but they did find paint from the fence on his car, so he hit the fence somewhere, even if that bit of the fence was already down. Yeah. So it suggested that he wasn't just driving casually down the drive. He spun his car around and tried to get out fast, but they got him at some point. Obviously, they must have run up to him. The windows of the car were probably open, weren't they? Because it was a really hot night. Yeah, that's it. Dean Morehouse is, the father of Ruth Ann Morehouse, who Terry Melcher's supposed to have really liked. They all passed her around by the sound of things. And she was, 14? Really disgusting stuff, yeah. But yeah, like I say, I put this slideshow together. Well, it's just, like bullet points, basically, of it all. So yeah, it took them 12 hours to identify his body, despite his having ID on him and them having his car registration. He was identified by a priest and mentor, Father Robert Byrne, who he was also the altar boy for. Tom confirmed Parent was gay and was concealing this from his friends and family. He actually called his boyfriend, Gerald Friedman, from the guest house, and it was confirmed he wasn't going over there to install stereo equipment. He was going over there to stay the night. And he also stayed a few nights a week with a 52-year-old defrocked priest called Edgar Kahn, who had been prosecuted for lewd conduct with minors, and who he was introduced to by Byrne. So yeah. That is so weird, isn't it? And the only thing I can think of is it was because the other victims were thought of as more important because they were famous, weren't they? Sharon and Jay Sebring were famous, and Abigail Folger's dad would have been one of the richest guys in the country at the time, wouldn't he? So like maybe they just prioritised the other victims. It might not be anything more sinister than that. But when you hear all this strange stuff about Stephen Parent, it makes you think they were covering something up about weird stuff that was going on up there, like why he was there, the real reason he was there. They don't want us to know the real reason he had gone to see Garretson, obviously, because was it really to sell him a clock radio? And also, Edgar Khan got him the job at the stereo shop he worked at the time of his death. He was the creepy other priest. And Parent was fired from his previous job at an audio studio for stealing, and people there believed he was a kleptomaniac. And he also stole from the store he was working at, they found out after his death. And he received a call at the store the night of his death and lied to get off the phone. This was later confirmed to be from Khan. And Stephen made a call from the shop he worked at before he left and made sure no one heard who he was talking to. And then Khan heavily denied all relationship with Stephen Parent to the police, saying he only talked about stereo equipment with him when he came over to his house and dropped all that stuff about. And once he bought a girl. And I was ringing him to say, don't come over because I've got a girl coming over, basically, and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Like, was he even there to see Garrettson? Or was he there to go and see, Fikowski and Jay? And, like, what was Garrettson really up to? Because Garrettson was obviously just scared witless by it all, wasn't he, in the end? So he just denied everything. He will probably never tell us the truth about whether he was involved in any of the gay stuff, will he? Because he's just been so shattered by everything. Because apparently they dragged him up to the bodies on the lawn and were saying to him, why did you do this and that? And he obviously hadn't done it, but that's got to mess you up, hasn't it? Seeing Abigail and Fikowski on the lawn. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. There's the picture. There's a picture of Sharon riding past the gate, riding past it, and you can see the fences down then. But they found paint from the fence on his car, so he hit the fence somewhere, even if it wasn't there. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Compulsive stealing seems like a trauma response, yeah, because he was being left alone with all these priests. He was an altar boy. So he would have been with the priests alone a lot and that, yeah. So it was like a attention seeking to try and get help, maybe, yeah. Horrible. Yeah, sorry, just looking at the chat for a second. Yeah, it just seems like a weird reason, doesn't it? And like I say, Garrettson has just been so freaked out by everything, I doubt he'll ever admit it, but the situation he was in, it looks like he was one of these houseboys as well, so maybe he was gay as well, and he's just too scared to admit it, any of it, you know. We don't know. It is just speculation. But, you know, it does just all seem quite odd, doesn't it? And I wonder if he was known to text as well through all this houseboy stuff, you know. Yeah, that's it. Apparently he was staying several nights a week, but both the priests denied that. You hear the one Tom O'Neill's interviewing deny that, and he denied that he'd lived there. He said he only came over 3 or 4 Sunday nights to talk about audio equipment. But the people that Steve Parent was working with said the guy used to ring him up and agitate him. Like if he wasn't home on time for dinner or whatever, he'd ring him and harass him, basically. It's weird. That's it, yeah, and Rudy Altabelli is a weird bloke, yeah, if you look into it. Yeah, sounds like. He maybe was like the ringleader of the ball. But Harrigan and Doyle had one too. Like I say, I've done a whole stream about that. The situation where they stole. The houseboys stole money off them, basically. Stole about $5,000 as well. Yeah, more than the usual $2,000 that you hear about in this case. Obviously, you can't see my candle, can you, around the mic? Still can hardly see it. There you go. Hi there, Ken. Hey. Yeah. Yeah, that was basically the excuse they gave. There were so many other things to do, they just didn't look into the car registration. But they also had his ID straight out of his pants pockets, so they could have identified him straight away. And I think the sad truth is that he just probably wasn't a priority because he wasn't as famous as the other victims or whatever. Horrible. Yeah, that's it. It was the start of black butlers and gay pool boys in Hollywood back then, yeah. Yeah. Rudy was the godfather of the gay mafia in Hollywood. Wonder who he is now, yeah. Yeah. They had so much to do, but yeah, they still failed to type all the blood. They just said assumed same source for loads of blood, didn't they? Where there was blood all over the place over by the bushes and that. They didn't even test all the blood. It's terrible. I run out of tea, okay. Yeah. Oh, next Sunday as well, hopefully Mr. Beckham's coming on, and we're going to do a stream about Danny DiCarlo. Because, yeah, I didn't realise people were interested in him. So, yeah, we could do a stream just to talk about who he was and where he came from and all that. And what's happened to him since as well, because, yeah, I've not heard much about what the hell happened to him after this. I know his motorcycle gang, they all got patched over to Hell's Angels, didn't they? But I don't know what the hell happened to him after that. Presumably he's all right. Or if he's dead, died of natural causes. Though he was a snitch, so maybe. That's it, yeah. And there's Charles Manson. There's links to Charles Manson and pornography, and obviously sex trafficking. That was what he was in prison for first, was what we'd now call sex trafficking, taking a woman into Mexico, wasn't he? And Rudy was orchestrating a porn boy network that Manson was involved with. So yeah, I mean, that's just speculation. We haven't got any hard evidence of that. Or if the police have evidence of that, they have not released it to the public, yeah. Yeah. Oh yes, I will ask you about that. We found, yeah, you've shared it on the subreddit, haven't you? And I shared the thing in the Facebook group as well, the channel. That is a novel, that YouTube channel, but that's the Special Operations group in Vietnam, isn't it? Yeah. But that was just a novel based on it, but it does look good, so it's worth watching. And whoever's written it has, yeah. Huh. Huh. Do you think DiCarlo is the key to all of it? I don't know. Well, I know the Straight Satans were pissed off about the sword being used, weren't they, in the Hinman thing? But yeah. Yeah, that's it. Beckham knows all about him. That's why Beckham, having Beckham on, because he's got his army records and everything, yeah. All that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah, that's it as well. Johnny was running ads with phone numbers for escorting. He'd send out the girls on dates and said he would rob tricks and bring angry men looking for her back to the ranch. Or I don't know if he was arranging it, yeah, but she used to run off with blokes for weeks, didn't she, and then come back having got into trouble with them or whatever, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you sent him there to investigate a crime. DiCarlo, I wondered that, especially because I was shocked by how different he looks when he's walking into court. That made me wonder straight away, was he always an undercover copper? And that's why he just sort of walked off into the sunset, Danny DiCarlo, because, yeah, he looks so different in the court. His hair's been cut short, obviously. And he has tattoos, but undercover policemen would go that far as to get tattoos, you know. But yeah, we'll talk about that on Sunday, obviously. We've not got up to an hour yet, so I'll carry on chatting here. We're supposed to talk about Stephen Parent, weren't we? So let's look at the chat for a minute. Yeah. Sorry, just looking at the chat. Everyone's just saying hi to each other. Yeah, but basically for the houseboy stuff, I've done a whole stream about the houseboy of Harrigan and Doyle robbing them of $5,000, and that's the thing. These houseboys, it was a sort of bisexual gay thing. So if Harrigan and Doyle had one of these houseboys, maybe they were. That's the thing, yeah. That's what it was all about, you know. Everyone was at that at the time. In Hollywood, it was the trend sort of thing. And like I say, with a lot of us just speculate that there was some kind of network of them, and so they were all known to each other, and that might have had something to do with the motive for the murders. And it was initially maybe a robbery that went wrong. Terence Cooksley, that's the name of the Terence Cooksley is the name of the houseboy that was the houseboy for Harrigan and Doyle. And again, we've got nothing to solidly link him to Garrettson or Perrin or Tex or anything. That's just another name of a houseboy that we have. And we know that Bobby Beausoleil had that sort of arrangement with Kenneth Anger. And so Bobby Beausoleil had done that sort of work. And it sure looks sus because Tex was actually at Dennis Wilson's house before Charlie arrived. And he was influenced by Dean Morehouse as well. He's a total pervert. You know, it's actually later in the 80s, I think he's actually prosecuted, but there's evidence that he was prosecuted for sexual offences against minors later in the 80s. And he's known as the pervy priest sort of thing. And he influenced Tex probably more than Charlie, really, if you look into it. And yeah, so like it's possible that Tex was in this pool boy or pool houseboy is what they're actually referred to in all the newspaper articles and police reports, was in this houseboy game, basically. It's one of the ways he made money in Hollywood. And Tex could supply drugs as well. He obviously had drug dealing contacts, didn't he? So that was another reason they would have wanted Tex around. Yeah. The Coast Guard and the pool boy mafia were sworn deadly enemies, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I talk about all this. Yeah. He was beating him with a hammer handle and they stopped because he liked it, yeah. Like I say, I've done a whole stream about that called The Time the Houseboy Stole $5,000 worth of coke money. There's like a Harrigan and Doyle playlist that I've done of all the stuff I've found about Harrigan and Doyle. So yeah, it's crazy. But I suspect that the $5,000 going missing, they somehow lost it or whatever, or spent it on something else until they got the kid to say he'd stolen it to explain where all this money had gone. Maybe. It's just one theory of mine, but who knows? Right, you think... Oh, what? Kenneth Anger came to your 23rd birthday party and you didn't know who he was? Wow, yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Danny DiCarlo, you mean? He and Sherry Cooper went on a years-long crime spree. And it comes up at the trial as well in the transcripts I was reading. He only testified at the TLB trial because he thought he was going to get immunity for assaulting 2 policemen. That's all in the trial transcripts. Because I didn't read a lot of it out, so it gets pretty heavy reading the trial transcripts. It's pretty boring. The transcripts are linked in the description of that stream if you want to look at them in more detail. Yeah, but he went off with the girl called Sherry, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah. Well, the dog did it. I think the dog stole the $5,000. Yeah, there is the thing about they say. I think it's in her grand jury testimony. Susan says she looks out the window at some point and there was a dog out there. So yeah, there was a mystery dog at the scene as well. Yeah. Why don't you talk about Sherry in the chat now? Yeah, he might have been undercover the whole time. Well, that was the first thing I thought when I saw how different he looked. A year later, basically going into court, I thought, "Oh my god, yeah, you were in disguise the whole time." And people point out as well when he's in the Spahn Ranch raid photos, he's handcuffed in front, not behind, which is sort of some sort of signal, isn't it? But people speculate that's some kind of signal. And Charlie apparently said to Nicholas in an interview, he said about Shorty Shay, we stuck to the wrong pig, and that it was Danny DiCarlo who was actually the snitch. So Charlie knew that in the end, you know. And they should have killed him instead of Shorty Shay. It was basically what Charlie said to Nicholas Shrek years later. Yeah, that's it. Was it the dog who carried the steak knives down the back trails that either do or do not exist? Schrodinger's back trails. Do they exist or don't they? Did they exist? The dog was Patricia looking in the window, yeah. Who knows? Yeah, so yeah, Crony probably scared the dog. Well, no, apparently at the La Bianca's, Krenwinkel spent ages petting the dogs. The dogs were really tame and they liked Krenwinkel, and she was petting the dogs, like, you know, in between carving stuff in lino and sticking forks in his stomach. Yeah. No, apparently she was petting the dogs. I remember reading that when I was reading all the La Bianca stuff. That's one of the things Crony did. She was sitting there petting the La Bianca's dog. While she had the owner's blood on her as well. That's the crazy thing. The dog was letting her pet her. Yeah, sorry, just looking at the chat. Cool, we've got 60 people watching. Thanks for coming, everyone. Yeah, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Yeah. As you just mentioned, show the Krenwinkel one, yeah. Like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. If you've got this far in the video and you're watching on playback as well, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and she continues to work with dogs in prison as well. Yeah, she trained dogs for disabled people and that, doesn't she? Yeah. And another thing I watched about her, she was into physical fitness thing and training women to be fire marshals in the woods or something like that. She was training women to do stuff like that in one of the things I heard. Yeah, that's it. Because people said that no one reported the dogs ever barking. Yeah, so had they creeped across the La Bianca house. But they had been at Harold Tree's house, which is really close to the La Biancas, before. So they possibly knew the La Biancas. And the dogs used to get left out in the garden. So maybe they knew the dogs, you know, they got to know the dogs. And that sort of stuff, yeah. But this all suggests that maybe they were not strangers to the La Biancas as well, doesn't it? And that's being hidden from us for some reason. Because it doesn't fit the official narrative. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Well, this is what I'm saying. Yeah, did she know them? Possibly. Could have, known them whilst they were at Harold Tree's house. But some dogs just aren't good guard dogs as well, are they? They're just really, really daft and would just submit to the people that had just murdered you, probably. Do you know what I mean? There's just some breeds of dogs that are just, like, ridiculous, aren't they? You know, the Lassie type of dog and stuff like that. They really would just roll over and let the person that just murdered you rub their stomach. I don't know what breed the dogs were, yeah, but yeah, some dogs are just they're just not good for that, are they? They're very, very domesticated animals. Oh god, yeah, don't ask what they're suggesting about Jane Fonda when we talk about dogs. Yeah, this is the thing you can't talk about because she probably sees. But yeah, maybe on the after show, the one I'll take down, we'll talk more about the Jane Fonda rumours, but not on this one, yeah. Oh, your dog's going into labour now as well. Talking of dogs, wow. During the live stream. Don't let Jane Fonda near them. Sorry, shouldn't have said that. Yeah. But anyway. Yeah, well, we're getting up to an hour long for this stream, so I might end this one. Give me 5 minutes to make myself another cup of tea, and I'll come back and do an after stream. And we can talk, just more generally. Have more of a laugh. Excellent. Yeah, I'll end this one now. And like I say, next week, I should have Mr. Beckham on, and we're going to be talking about Danny DiCarlo on Sunday. And I'm not sure if I'll do a Thursday night stream yet. I'll let you know by Wednesday through the community tab and in all the groups and on the Reddit and that, if I'm going to do a Thursday night stream or not. But definitely Sunday, Mr. Beckham's on and we're doing Danny DiCarlo. Right, yes. So yeah, I'll end this one now. And I'll see you in 5 minutes if you stick around for the after show. If not, I'll see you next week.